The Kamoro, some 18,000 people speaking the same language, live along the south coast of New Guinea, the world's largest tropical island, located just north of Australia across the shallow Arafura Sea. Only a few Kamoro villages are connected by road to the new town of Temeka. The rest of the villages can only be reached by water. Dugout canoes are the main means of transportation. They are made from hollowed-out single tree trunks of semi-hard woods. Steel tools make this process much easier than in the old days, when only stone implements were available. The canoes can vary in size from 3 or 4 meters to over 15 meters, depending on the size of the tree chosen. It is essential for every family to own a canoe in order to obtain food. Most Kamoro still paddle their canoes, usually going with the tide when possible, as these reach quite far inland due to the flat nature of the land. In each village, there are at least 2 or 3 canoes with outboard engines. But it is hard to obtain fuel supplies for them, and this is quite expensive when available. So even those Kamoro who own outboards frequently paddle, unless their trip is a very long one. The Kamoro still follow a semi-nomadic existence, one of the few surviving hunter-gatherer groups in the world. Hunting forays still take place, but fishing is far more important. Indeed, the survival of the Kamoro depend on fishing, along with the sago, their starch staple. Instead of playing with trucks, boys pull miniature canoes. They learn to paddle about the same time they learn to walk. Related family and friends travel to the beach on a regular basis to gather food from their environment, abundant in natural resources. For those Kamoro living in villages a distance from the sea, a trip to the beach means plenty of fresh fish and other kinds of food found in abundance there, or in the nearby mangrove swamps. A large town called Temeka exists since 1970 due to the presence of Freeport Indonesia, a large mining company. The town offers modern items such as fishing nets and clothing, as well as an insatiable market for fish and other products from the Kamoro land. Governments since time immemorial have shown a remarkable aversion to the nomadic lifestyle. Starting in the late 1920s, the Kamoro were cajoled or forced to establish fixed villages. But to ensure their food supply, as well as for blessed periods of complete liberty, the Kamoro leave their villages to live in temporary camps located either on the beach, near their sago tree stands, or at the edge of the tropical rainforest. While maintaining their essentially traditional lifestyle, the Kamoro have adopted many items and concepts from the outside world. Roofing with colorful rain-proof tarpaulins is replacing traditional palm leaf thatch. Life in the temporary camps shows what the Kamoro consider essential, traditional, and modern. All but the youngest children wear store-bought clothes. Steel axes are now indispensable for cutting down larger trees, while life would be difficult without multi-use machetes. Nothing from the modern world has replaced hinged fire tongs, but kitchen wares are all bought, along with ever-present plastic wares. Their temporary shelters are still made of trunks and branches of mangrove trees, lashed together with vines, all easily found in the nearby mangrove swamps. Once the materials are at hand, the building itself takes only an hour or so. With a team of several men working together, the Kamoro are happiest when working in a group on just about any task. A shared lifestyle is basic to their social relations. The Kamoro have plenty of experience fishing. They take into consideration the distance from shore, the changes in current and flow tide fluctuations, fish types and their feeding habits, and probably many other factors. The gill nets are pulled up with the entangled catch. The fish, sharks and crabs will be pulled out of the net later when men and women work together. This is looking good. Mostly black-tip sharks and a few juvenile hammerheads, along with catfish and several other species, and the odd ray. The Kamoro regularly catch over 50 fish species in the estuaries and close offshore. However, most of the fish caught belong to a dozen species. The season for sharks run from October to February. Catfish of several species are caught year-round. Pakyol's son, David, is allowed to come along when the nets are pulled up. He knows that he has to stay out of the way, but this is an exciting time for him and a couple of his young friends. Their excited comments on the catch foretell of many good meals ahead. As all Kamoro, Pakyol learned basic fishing from his father, as he now teaches fishing to his young son, David.
Sudah itu Bapak itu. Saya ada tarik ini. Oh, kecil. Di sana boleh. Kasih lihat, kasih lihat, kasih lihat. Sini, sini, sini. Ya. Bagus.
Although these are Pakyol's nets, and he put them up with just another man helping him, the catch is shared among all the families that came with him. They are all close relatives or very good friends. The nets can be repaired several times until after some weeks or months of continuous use, they are discarded and new ones have to be bought. Standard length and width nets, such as Pakyol uses, can be bought in town for the equivalent of some $30. The largest animals are sliced up right after being disentangled. The meat is cut up into strips to facilitate the drying process. Depending on the amount of sun, the strips dry in 2 or 3 days. The smoked fish may be a bit tough to chew, but the Kamoro don't mind this and like its flavor. It will keep for several weeks. Pakyul, his relatives and friends decided to keep all of their fish for home consumption, not planning to sell any. Everyone keeps the shark fins. These are placed on raised platforms to dry out in the sun. Were it not for discerning Chinese palates, these fins would be thrown away. At the Tamika market, shark fins of this size sell for the equivalent of $15 to $20 a kilo. Don't try to tell the Kamoro to stop catching sharks for reasons of conservation, not unless you can offer them an alternative source of income requiring the same amount of time and effort. The majority of Kamoro live in villages located very close to the sea. They live in permanent houses and have many food resources at their disposal nearby. The nearshore and estuaries offer the best fishing, far more abundant than inland. The nearby mangrove swamps are like a supermarket for the Kamoro. The opening and closing hours depend on the tides, and the various foods are kept in different places, like in the mud. As savvy shoppers, they know exactly where to go for what they want. Mangrove crabs are delicious and fetch good prices at the Tamika market. Unlike fish, these crabs are easy to conserve fresh and alive for several days. For their own meals or for sale, mangrove crabs are sought in the swamps. The Kamoro are used to walking in the thick, slippery mud and know very well where the crabs are hiding at low tide, the right time to catch them. The price of these crabs at the Tamika market range from $1 to $3 depending on size. Leaves are used so that the crabs will retain body moisture, but they must also be securely tied up, as their large claw can easily sever a finger. Escaped crabs have to be recaught with utmost care. Good-sized monitor lizards are eagerly sought for food, as well as drum making. These lizards are found in their mangrove swamp habitat. Keen eyes and lots of experience are necessary to spot a lizard resting high in a treetop. The easiest way to capture the animal is to chop down the tree. lizard is grabbed by practiced hands from its fallen perch. Another way to catch the large monitor lizards requires a spring trap. A trip platform is carefully laid on the muddy mangrove ground. Mangrove stems with leaves are stuck in the ground to camouflage the trap.
Kalau dia punya bekas kaki banyak untuk dia pulang pergi, berarti tidak perlu pakai makanan. Tapi kalau jarang, kita harus pakai makanan.
A noose is lightly placed over the trap and tied to a strong bent sapling. Caught by one of its front paws, the lizard remains suspended until someone checks the trap. The skin is carefully cut off and saved for use as the playing surface of a drum. The lizard's skinned body can be roasted directly over fire, boiled, or cut up and fried with spices. This makes for a delicious addition to any Kamoro meal. Coconut trees provide an appreciated addition to the Kamoro diet. There is always a demand at the Timika market for fresh coconuts. They keep well and represent an important source of income for the Kamoro. Agile young boys are usually picked to climb the trees to cut down the coconuts, but older men can also scamper up a coconut tree quite easily. Green coconuts are an excellent thirst quencher, and the soft inner meat is eaten right away. The meat from older coconuts are scraped and added to sago for taste. There are hundreds of different shellfish on the beach and in the mangroves. While most are edible, the Kamoro only gather the larger ones. These are found a short distance from shore in the mangrove swamps. Women feel the near surface of the shallow mud in likely places. Many are found there, quite close to each other. These animals can be kept for several days and thus brought to the Timika market. The various shellfish are to be cooked either directly on the fire or mixed with sago and wrapped in leaves. One of the favorites is a large oyster-like one. Another kind of shellfish in no way resembles oysters. yet it belongs to the same group, as it has two valves or shells at one end of its body. The Kamoro eagerly seek this animal called tambello. They're mostly found inside two species of fallen mangrove trees. Soon after the trees fall, the larvae bore into the trunk, mature, and then stay there for the rest of their lives, burrowing into the slightly rotting but still very hard wood. The Kamoro know exactly which fallen logs contain tambello. These are split open to get at the animals inside. Many are eaten right away. They are considered the most healthy of foods, a cure-all for many kinds of sickness, or just feeling out of sorts. Tambello is also said to enhance one's sexual drive. They are related to the ship's worms, but even if they look like long, slimy worms, they are not that. The taste is quite good, like that of a fine, raw, sweet oyster. The tambello will not keep for long, and thus must be consumed the same day they are gathered. They are brought back to camp on sections of tree bark and covered with leaves. Even if they could be brought back to market while still fresh, tambello would find few buyers, as all but Kamoro are too disgusted by their appearance. While the Kamoro obtain most of their food directly from nature, some of them also practice small-scale farming. Unlike their highlands Papuan cousins, the Kamoro are not at all keen on agriculture, but they do some gardening today after several generations of government and church cajoling. They plant what will require the least amount of care, as they are unwilling to spend much time in the gardens. Cassava, or manioc, planted in small plots, requires little attention and grows well in dry conditions. The plants are propagated by inserting sections of the stem into shallow holes. Cassava produces edible roots and leaves. The leaves are the only vegetable that is consumed by the Kamoro on a relatively regular basis. There are several ways to cook the leaves, usually with condiments added.
Mama nakamunong ba?
Talam ya marata. Mudah dah mudah. Mudah mah. Ini macam. Ini orang cukup mana-mana harus.
Di rumah ya. Kerisanya kan. Ini presto.
Ya menyerah kamu ya. Ya kan mana orang. Wah ya bawa tadi kan orang nampak mana orang. Nyabar apa dia nyabar. Bawa mana. Oh meze. Mes. Warung Mama kan main mana beda.
The sago palm is literally the Kamoro's tree of life. Its trunk provides the pith for making the staple starch component of their meals. As the tree matures, its inner trunk turns into usable starch. The pith of the trunk is tasted for its edible starch content. A small chunk is cut and tested to determine if the palm is ready.
Coba makan sedikit lagi.
The experts judged that this tree was not yet ready. It was left standing for cutting in a few months.
Bagaimana?
It is just before the sago palm flowers that its trunk yields the most starch. After this time, the pith turns sweet. It can be consumed directly, but cannot be processed and stored.
Mina gua korang war main mama. Dua tahu kau ini ayam gimana? Aduh ini sudah sagu. Oh, kamu ikut tu yang ini. Ada kapal ikut gua lah, nama aku mau no.
The top part of the hard bark of the trunk is cut off to expose the inner pith. The sides of the trunk are left in place to serve as a container to hold the inner section as it is processed. The pith contains an edible cellulose fiber along with the usable starch. The specialized adze called wapuru is used to break up the pith. A ring of teeth jut out of the business end of the wapuru, biting into the pith with every accurately aimed stroke. The palm's fronds are cut to make the trough for processing the sago. Handfuls of the pulverized pith of the sago tree trunk are placed at the upper end of the trough. Water is poured on the broken up pith to dissolve the starch it contains. The soggy water and pith mixture is squeezed together, with the water carrying the suspended starch through the filter that blocks out the inedible woody cellulose fibers. The starch-laden water cascades down the steep angles of the first portion of the trough into the long horizontal section. The starch settles at the bottom and solidifies in a few hours. Large seashells are still occasionally used as a water ladle in the sago processing. For a quick snack, a ball of solidified sago is placed directly into the fire. Another sago tree, cut down some 2 weeks ago, is split to see if there are any sago grubs. A specialized weevil type of beetle lays its eggs into fallen sago trees. The larva that develops is edible, raw or cooked. Sago fronds are heated over a fire to make them more flexible, to make baskets called tumang. The water on top of the sago is poured out and the solid starch taken out of the trough and packed into the tumang. Stored sago is used up as needed. Just enough is taken out for the amount of food required. One way to prepare sago is to cook it on a griddle directly over a fire. Fish and sago are the main Kamoro staples, providing protein and starch. The traditional Kamoro lifestyle fits perfectly with the bountiful resources that nature provides.